Hi, Claude Whitacre here. I'm a sales trainer. I own a couple of businesses. I teach sales techniques to groups of salespeople, sales managers, and I also talk to groups of small business owners. So if you're the kind of a person whose income is determined by how much you sell, you might find this interesting. When I'm giving speeches, a lot of times somebody will ask me a question from the audience. A lot of times it's about sales or sales training or something. Well, something I get pretty regularly is I'll say, you know, we just hired a new salesperson, or when you hire a new salesperson, what's the most important thing you can do? Give me a tip that I can use when I'm hiring a new salesperson. Well, you have to understand what a new salesperson is going through. See, they're not familiar with your company, they don't know your product, they don't know your service, they don't know how to prospect, and you can explain to them how to do all of these things, but the truth of the matter is, until they actually see it being done, they don't believe it can happen. Okay? For example, when I first started selling in people's homes, when I was selling vacuum cleaners, it took me 3 months before I made my first sale. Now, I stuck with it for 3 months, and most people I don't think would do that, but I stuck with it for 3 months and I made my first sale. Then I made my second sale, it was a little bit easier, and then the third sale was a little bit easier, and so on and so on. And eventually I was making sales pretty regularly. I was making quite a few sales. But when you're brand new, you don't even know what people act like when they buy. You don't even believe that there are people that buy your product. For example, the only reason I stuck with selling vacuum cleaners, when I stuck with it at the beginning for 3 months and I didn't make a sale, here's why. Because I knew somebody else that bought before I bought. Then I bought. And I kept telling my wife at the time, I kept telling her, you know, she says, you need to quit, you need to do something else. And I said, you know, we bought, you know, and I'm not a fool, so I know it's not the machine. And I know that there are people out there that are buying. And I know that there are people out there that are selling. So it's me, it's not the machine, it's me. I'm doing something wrong. I have to figure out the things I'm doing wrong and stop doing those things and start doing the things that are right, the things that will actually make sales happen. Well, eventually I kind of figured that out, but see, I had that information. I knew immediately that there were people that bought and there were people that were going to buy from me. I just needed to work out how to do that, how to make that work. Most people don't make those connections. You know, they just know that you know, they just know that nobody's buying. So they think it's maybe the economy, it must be your price or your product, or there's an objection to the product that they think maybe the leads are bad, or I mean, they come up with all kinds of reasons why nobody's buying. When I was training salespeople years ago, maybe the most valuable thing that I did was this. When I took a new person, I would have them go with me because I knew that I would make sales. And I had them go with me, and they got to see 10 sales. They got to see my first 10 sales, sometimes running their leads, sometimes they would be the ones helping, you know, prospect. But I would be doing the appointment, and I would pay them, frankly, what they would make if they made the sale themselves. Now, I don't know if that would work for your product or service, but that's simply what I did. But they would see sales being made, and more often than not, better than a 50-50 chance that when we would go into somebody's home and I would show them my product, which at the time was a vacuum cleaner, there was a better than 50-50 chance that the person was going to buy from me. Okay? So they got to see lots of sales being made, and here's how that benefited them. First of all, they were absolutely convinced by the time they were on their own, after the first 10 sales were made, they were absolutely convinced that people bought. Okay? So they didn't think buying was something that was unusual. They also saw how people acted when they bought. They also saw how people acted when they made sales. See? They also saw the paperwork being filled out, and they saw afterwards, you know, after you signed the paperwork, okay, you took about 15 minutes, or at least I did, took about 15 minutes to show them how to use the equipment and use the machine and make sure that all the questions are answered and everything, you know, and then thank you very much, people, and then you'd leave. So they got to see the whole thing over and over and over again. So when they hit the ground running, see, because they already knew how to make sales, and to them, making sales was the natural end result of presenting our product. And that's a really strong thing when you're a brand new salesperson, to know that buying is the natural conclusion to a sales presentation. Because then everything that you do is different. You're not giving off this, you're not giving off a vibe like, oh, you know, if you buy it'll be a miracle because I haven't sold anything yet. I actually had I actually had a salesperson call me. I say salesperson, he actually called me. He was in somebody's home, and he calls me up, and he says, Claude, you know, I'm in so-and-so's home, and they've decided to go ahead and buy. I said, well, that's phenomenal. You know, that's really, really good. Okay, so let me ask you a few questions to, you know, find out so we can fill out the application. And he says, man, I'm so glad these people bought because I haven't sold anything since I began 3 months ago. This is my first sale. And I said, I'm on the phone with him. I said, can the people hear what you're saying? He goes, oh yeah, they're sitting right here. I said, okay, let me explain. You just killed your sale. Your sale is now dead. Between now and before you leave that home, they're going to go in the back room, or they're going to have to talk to each other for a second. For whatever reason, they're going to make up a reason why they have to talk. And they're going to come back out of the other room, and they're going to say that something happened where now they can't buy. Okay, I'm just telling you, don't repeat what I just said. I'm just telling you that's what's going to happen, because you just told them, without meaning to tell them, you just told them that buying is a completely unnatural act and that nobody buys from you. You've just told them that them buying from you is a foolish thing to do. And of course that's what happened. He calls me, you know, he calls me back. I think he called me back, or he stopped back in the office. And he said, well, you're right, Claude. I mean, that's what happened. You know, they came back out and they said that they went over their budget and they just couldn't afford it right now, but, you know, maybe later they're going to buy it and all that. And I said, okay, so did you learn? Of course, he didn't learn his lesson. But he could have learned his lesson. And in training people, you could learn your lesson by having them see sales. Now, the question, if you're listening to this, the question that you should ask yourself is, well, Claude, why didn't you have him see 10 sales from you? And here's why. Because at the time, I had 4 or 5 other people that I was training, and I just couldn't spread myself out that thin. So unfortunately, he got the short end of that stick, is really what happened. So it just really wasn't fair to him. Had he already seen, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 sales, and then maybe I'd have gone with him a couple of times so that he would have sold something, and then he would have seen how that works, and then it would have been all comfortable for him, maybe then we would have had a much better salesperson. Okay? If you'd like to know more about how to train salespeople and how to get them to sell lots and lots of your product, one of the most important things that you need to know is about prospecting, because getting in front of the right people, people that are actually looking to buy what you sell, is a great advantage. And that's frankly one of my biggest secrets to sales success, is being in front of the right people. See? And if you want to know more about how to do that, my book, Sales Prospecting, The Ultimate Guide to Finding Highly Likely Prospects You Can Close in One Call. It's on Amazon. If you get a copy, and if you leave a review, I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.